John was already out of his car, walking up to mine and shouting at me. At this point, I was terrified and shaking. He gets to my car and pulls open the door, and is now blocking my path to the front door of the house. I looked up and saw the rage in his eyes. Everything happened so fast, I can barely remember what was said. I do vaguely remember asking him why he was following me, and how did he know where to find me, assuming that he had followed me from my school, which meant that he sat in his car for God knows how long, waiting for me to get out. All he said in response was, "I need to talk to you." I refused, and told him that I was going to call the police. His response was, "I don't care. I just came here to see you." At this point, I burst out of my car, taking John by surprise as I pushed past him. I flew up the steps and flung open the door and ran inside. I could have made the U.S. Olympic team if they saw how fast I hauled ass. I was blowing my eyes out, scared out of my mind, shaking from adrenaline and shock. My grandfather was in the living room, asking me who was yelling outside. The only words I could get out of my mouth was, "He followed me here." I see my great uncle standing there with a shotgun. He then followed my grandfather outside. My grandfather confronted John in his driveway. "See that road, boy?" He pointed. "You best get your ass on it now."
What?
I was standing on the porch next to my uncle, who had his arm over my shoulder, with me, with a shotgun in his other hand. At that moment, I thanked God for my redneck family.
Lucky miss!
John shot me this horrible look, as if to say, "This isn't over by a long shot," and then he sped off. My grandfather then told me that he was going to follow me home for the next few days. I also had co-workers walk with me in my car, and would have James greet me in the driveway every night. Fast forward about a month. By this point, paranoia was controlling my life. I couldn't go anywhere by myself. I deleted all my social media accounts, and would see a counselor at my school on a regular basis. I would even have the resource officer walk me to and from the parking lot. I was always looking over my shoulder with each step, and was still having coworkers walk me to my car every night. It's safe to assume that everybody at my work knew what was going on. After having off a Monday and returning to work on Tuesday as scheduled, I went outside to catch a quick smoke and joined the company of this older woman that I worked with. She was outside the smoking area, waiting for me with news that sent chills down my spine. Apparently while I was off that Monday, a man came in looking for me. The staff knew that I was off, and said they couldn't disclose any information about me. He told them okay, and left. Fast forward to 3 in the morning, and a co-worker of mine, who had a similar appearance to me, who was unaware that I was being stalked and harassed, had gotten off, when she noticed someone in a red car was following her. It followed her all the way to her home, and this poor girl lived over 30 miles away, in a different county, with her mother and 3 kids. So when she pulled into the driveway, and noticed that the car was still behind her, she called her mother, and told her to grab her gun and come outside. Her mother did as she said, and exited the house gun drawn. My co-worker stepped out of her car, and tried to get a look at the driver, but was blinded by his headlights. I'm guessing that this is when John realized that the girl was not me, and quickly drove out of there. After I heard this, I broke down crying, and apologized over and over to that girl. It felt horrible. My problems were starting to affect other people. What if he had broken into her house, or worse? That thought scares me to this day. This was the last major incident with John. I actually did research on him a couple years later. However, I'm sad to say that it didn't turn out much. A lot of traffic tickets and a suspended driver's license. But other than that, nothing. Every so often I do try to keep tabs on him, because I refuse to be a victim again. I will say that he never threatened me, or physically harmed me in any way, but it's just the fact that he went to such great lengths to hunt me down. which in its own way is very unnerving. I have since moved again, married, and very recently started a family. And I would say that I'm very happy that I've moved on with my life. But just the other night after returning home from a long shift, I noticed one of those artificial roses, the kind that you find in gas stations, laying on my front doorstep.
Now you've got some juice.
Om de skulle eraf.
Jeg satte på en ny fordi den var ferdig.
Ja, var det?
Ja, de slutter alltid med sånn der den slutter. Den her har jeg hørt før da.
I still can't get what happened last week out of my head. I mean, it doesn't fit together at all. I haven't been able to get any rest for the past few days just thinking about it. So I figured I would just write it down here and see if you guys had any better luck explaining it.
Kan du komme og
I
hjelpe
work at
meg,
a
Mikael?
daycare. It's a pretty established place in a big city on the coast. That's all I can say. I still work there, and I don't want anyone linking this post back to my employer. I'm not supposed to talk about anything that happens to the kids online. We mostly cater to the professional crowd. Busy people in finance and
Herregud,
even
audio
startups
rate is bra.
who don't or can't use an office daycare. It's a common sight to see someone in a business suit drop off a baby with a large cup of Starbucks in the other hand. People who can afford to blow $25 a week on coffee, go figure. One of the attractions was that we offered daycare for infants as well. A godsend for the jet-setting crowd in the city, I suppose. Lucy C was my favorite baby. Lucy's her real first name, which is all I'm prepared to share. We all have our favorites working in daycare. When you're faced with 4 screaming babies, you grow to like the quiet ones more than the others. Lucy C was as close to a perfect baby as you can get. She wasn't much of a crier, unless she needed to be changed. She went to sleep like clockwork. She had a crown of wispy blonde hair to offset her piercing cornflower blue eyes. Mr. C,
Mikael, det er
as far as I
filmvei.
could tell, was a self-made businessman. He ran one of those
Jeg blir
internet
ikke
startup
forfølgt, jeg
companies.
står fast.
I never caught what he did. And the 5-minute handovers in the morning really didn't make for startling revelations about his hopes and dreams. He always dressed sharply.
Det er gewoon een of
I'm
moet
not one for
spelen.
chasing passion, but some of the other girls who were here whispered designer labels that I'd only ever heard of until he referred to his latest threats. He seemed genuinely pleasant, if a little distracted at the moment. I had never seen a Mrs. C. There was an Abigail C. listed on the emergency contact form all parents had to fill out with our center, but she was listed as his sister. I know some of the others joked about whether he was on the market or not, so to speak, when they saw his sports car pull up to drop off little Lucy in the mornings. But that was just locker room talk. He was awfully
What
wealthy,
the
though.
fuck?
Successful in an ecosystem which chewed up and spat out
Just
100 other
you now.
young businessmen each year. Some kind
Is
of
het wat ik sta vast?
the other said. I try and think back to that morning last
Hey,
week.
Mikael.
Did Mr. C look strange that morning when he dropped Lucy off? I've replayed those 5 minutes over and over again in my mind these past few days.
Nej, jeg må
The
komme
suit was
tilbake ved.
immaculate. He greeted me like he did with the rest of the staff, with a warm smile, a kiss for Lucy, and a request to take good care of his girl. Just about the same thing any of the other 20 or so parents would have said. Maybe there wasn't really anything wrong. I keep on thinking back because if things had gone differently, I might have been able to save Lucy. Shit. I don't know why I wrote that. Lucy is fine. Or she should be. I don't know why I can't get it out of my head that I made a terrible mistake. Why there's this guilt I feel when I check in at work and see Lucy's favorite toys on the playroom floor. The children were taking their afternoon nap after lunch. The bell told me that there was someone at the front desk. The other
Oh,
staff were busy.
Chrome?
So I went to go see who it was. I didn't have any early pickup scheduled, so I thought it might be
Det er
someone
forferdelig å
making
være så
inquiries.
rik.
My breath caught a little when I saw him. He was really good looking. Not your high school crush good looking. I mean, this guy looked like he was plucked straight out of a fashion magazine. He stepped up to the counter and flashed his perfect white smile at me.
Han er fortsatt ikke
There
løs.
was something about this guy. A terrible feeling in my gut. A dirty,
What miracle did you
shameful
want me to
feeling.
perform?
The kind of dirty that makes you feel like you'll never be able to scrub it off. It was like I was standing in front of pure evil. When the man
Kom aan,
spoke,
we kjører.
he had a sort of radio voice. You know, kind of deep and smooth, and it fit him perfectly. Mr. C and I had an agreement. I'm here to collect Lucy. He didn't say that Mr. C sent him. He didn't even introduce himself. It was such a strange thing to say that I just stood there and
Fuck
stared
me,
at
da.
him for a minute. And he just stared back at me, his eyes twinkling with good humor from that devilishly handsome face. It was an
No
odd
shit, da du
request,
drepte jo
but
vennen
we do
deres.
get third-party pickups from time to time. It's very, very rare. And we either need to be
Ow!
fans or be
Du har jo faen meg drept alle der.
Nobody had mentioned that Lucy was going to be picked up that day. I told them
Sure.
that we couldn't do it unless we had authorization from the parents. He then smiled and told me that everything had been arranged,
Kjør.
and gestured towards my personal
Om du
cell
slår
phone
han
on the
gjennom
table.
bilen.
And just then, the damn thing rang. I jumped.
Om
I was a
du
bit more
slår han
nervous than I
gjennom
should have
bilen.
been. The strange man was really making me nervous. He had this weird aura around him. It was intimidating. It
Kjør.
was like I was totally undeserving of his attention.
I gotta get a
His stare made my breath catch in my
That's
throat.
trio, homie.
On the phone, Mr. C was odd. He didn't have my personal number. Hell, I didn't even have his number stored in my contacts either. It was a FaceTime call as well.
Hva? Du spilte meg
I
nettopp.
accepted the call, and Mr. C's face filled the screen. So off about the call. At first, I figured it was the network
Visste jeg at jeg kan
connection.
ødelegge den porten. Nå står den fast på deg.
His
Kjør.
lips were out of sync with his voice, like a badly dubbed film. Hey, there's a guy over there with you, right? Mr. C had an intense look of concentration on his face, and there was something else. There was
Ja,
a
men så kan
mark
du
on his
slutte
cheek.
da.
It was too small and too blurry on screen to make out exactly what it was, but I knew for sure it had not been there when he dropped Lucy off that morning. It seemed to be some kind of angular shape, about the size of a quarter. Yes, there is, sir. I was mesmerized by the video feed.
Vi kan
You need
sette
to
deg
get him
inn.
Lucy, okay? Just get him Lucy. There was something off. The movement of his lips didn't seem to match what he was saying. They seemed to be repeating the same thing.
Pushy. 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 Pushy.